Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. I would ask at this time that everybody would put your telephones on mute, please. And I take this opportunity on behalf of President Maureen Adamson to welcome you to this year's Remembrance Day event. We thank you for taking the time to attend. Similar services are being conducted at other campuses across the Fleming network, as well as across the province and the country. I would now like to welcome Liz Stone, Vice President, Indigenous Knowledge and Relations, who will be respectfully acknowledging the land that Fleming is situated on. Liz?
Chimigwech Murray, Bojo, Neiman, Mijikan, Kwe Dijnakas, Mijikan Dodam, Anishinaabe Kwe Minwa, Lenny Lenape Yandao, Amjanong Minwa Badasagi, Dunjaba, Nogo Juaning, Megwa Doda. Thank you for acknowledging the Indigenous people of this territory, who are the Michi-Sagig or Mississauga Anishinaabe people. They have been here since time immemorial and have signed in excess of 18 treaties across this territory. So Chimigwech for the services and for acknowledging them.
Thank you, Liz. The order of events is listed on a program card that was handed out earlier in your arrival, and I would ask that you refer to it, please, throughout the service. Across Canada and in many countries, people gather on November 11th to honor the courage and devotion of brave men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice of giving their lives for their country. The hostilities of the First World War ceased on November 11th, 1918 at 11 a.m., the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month. The following year marked the first observance of a day to remember and honor those who died, as well as those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Those who came back from service abroad, a different and changed person. Canadians have fought in other conflicts, and many have given their lives so that we might enjoy freedom today. They too should be remembered. 2023 marks the 102nd anniversary of the poppy. In 1921, the poppy was adopted by the Royal Canadian Legion as the flower and symbol of remembrance. The poppy was first made famous by the most influential poem of the First World War in Flanders Fields, which will be read later in this program. We remember and reflect today on Canada's participation in 2 world wars, Korea, and we remember our peacekeepers, that they were killed on various missions around the world. We remember the war in Afghanistan, the largest Canadian military deployment since the Second World War, where more than 40,000 Canadian Armed Forces members served from 2001 to 2014. Of the 40,000 Canadian Armed Forces members, 158 soldiers gave their lives, and more than 2,000 were physically wounded. Canada's contributions to peacekeeping and the preservation of freedom reminds us of the loss and suffering of those who died and the physical horrors and psychological wounds of those who survived. We remember today those for whom the war still rages as victims of post-traumatic stress and life-altering wounds. Even in peace, we have to remember that those who stand in the gap are at risk. And we remember today the tragic killing of Corporal Nathan Cirillo at the War Memorial in Ottawa, the killing of Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent at Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu in 2014, the most recent deaths of Captain Marc Laroche and Captain David Demaglia in June of 2023, a helicopter crash near Petawawa. These are all reminders that those who serve put themselves at risk even when they're not in a combat zone, and we also honor their service and sacrifices today. Many Indigenous people served and fought with distinction in both world wars and in Korea. It is estimated that 1/3 of the eligible Indigenous population between the age of 18 to 45 enlisted during World War I. Métis and Inuit soldiers also enlisted. However, only those with status were officially recorded by the Canadian Expeditionary Force. Many lost their status because they were away from the country for over 4 years. Locally, more than 50 Indigenous veterans from Hiawatha and Curve Lake First Nation are identified on the Indigenous Veterans Tribute List. Murray Wheatongue was an Army signalman in the Second World War. Enlisted into the Canadian military in August of 1942, he received many awards and accolades for his service and returned home in 1945. Recently, a private member's bill was enacted in his name, the Murray Wheatongue Community Service Act. This bill honors not only his service, but his contributions to community and also all First Nations veterans who voluntarily gave their lives in service of this country. In total, more than 7,000 First Nations men and women volunteered to serve during World War I and II. These are just examples of the distinguished service and sacrifice made by Indigenous veterans. In a moment, the flag will be lowered while Last Post is played. There'll be a 2-minute silence followed by an act of remembrance. Please follow along on your program for the reply highlighted after the Ode to Remembrance. They shall not grow old as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. I'll now like to introduce the next part of our program, the recitation of Flanders Fields. Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae from Guelph, Ontario, was a doctor with the Canadian Expeditionary Force during the First World War. On May 2nd, 1915, during the Second Battle of Ypres, in the Flanders region of Belgium, Alexis Helmer, a close friend of McCrae's, was killed. McCrae performed the burial ceremony himself. The very next day, he composed the now famous poem, In Flanders Fields. Our reading of Flanders Fields will be led by Don Gillespie, Chair of the Board of Governors of Fleming College. Mr. Chairman.
In Flanders Fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's now time for the placing of the wreaths. The first one will be laid by President Maureen Adamson on behalf of Fleming College community. On behalf of the Board of Governors, Don Gillespie, Chair of the Board, will be laying the wreath. On behalf of fallen soldiers, Major Carolyn Rod will be laying the wreath. On behalf of wounded warriors, Luke Van Velzen will be laying the wreath. On behalf of Indigenous veterans, Liz Stone will be laying the wreath. And on behalf of the Student Administrative Council, Jacques Gravelin will be laying the wreath. This concludes our service. I want to thank you all for taking a few moments out of your day to remember our veterans. Please feel free to pin your poppy on a wreath up here if there's somebody in your life you want to honor or pay tribute to today. Thank you on behalf of President Maureen Adamson.